Okay, today I'm in Newmarket with Jamie Piggott. Thank you very much for agreeing to talk to us, Jamie. You're a successful bloodstock agent based in Newmarket. Now, is Newmarket still the place to be for successful bloodstock agents?
Hi, Simon. Yeah, look, I think this is the home of horse racing, so it's nice to be in the mix. And there's really a horse that I get asked to do research on that isn't far more than 2 miles from my doorstep, so I'm quite lucky in that sense.
Now, you do gallop reports for potential private purchases, and you do like first-hand updates and stuff. And I've read that you try and sit on everything that you buy. Is that still the case?
That's right. Yeah. When I decided to be a Bloodstock agent, there was a lot of people that said, "Oh, you've got to go into the stud side and you've got to give up riding," and I never really wanted to stop. When I was learning from other agents, I still needed a way to make money, so I was still riding out anyway. And I just thought, if I can combine these two things and provide it as an extra service for my owners, for my clients, be it sourcing horses or horses we've already bought, you can just give a bit of an added insight. Things like, if we think the horse could do with a different trip or a different ground. We also put the GoPro on the head, and we can do speed analysis. We try not to get too in depth with it, but if it's just something extra we can provide to the owners, because at the end of the day they do a lot for us. We're only here because of their generosity and their their investment in the sport, and so they deserve as much back as possible, really.
Is that something quite unique that you offer there?
There wouldn't be many agents that would ride. Look, everyone has a different way of doing things, but the way I do it is try and have as close a bond with the horse as possible, and if that can afford me something extra, then all the more for it,
Right, we better get this out there first of all. You got one of the most famous and respected surnames in racing. Lester's your dad.
That's right, yeah.
So, were you aware as a kid that you had a famous father?
Yeah, I mean, when I was young, we didn't really overlap with his racing career, and when I was born, maybe by a year or so. But even from a very young age, you're always aware. We got to go to some lovely places when I was young, and he was sort of either guests or a guest rider, and it's impossible to get away from, but it's not something you want to get away from. I'm very proud of it, and everyone's got a Lester Piggott story, and it's wonderful for me to hear them as well. It reminds me that he's still remembered, and it's nice for him as well, But yeah, everyone certainly has a Lester Piggott story, and some of them were great. Lovely to hear.
So with the surname Piggott, was it always assumed that you were going to be a jockey?
I think so. Even from a young age, everyone said, "Do you ride?" and "How are you getting on? And do you enjoy it?" I was probably afforded the opportunity to race ride maybe quicker than other people would have done. However, it's 6 of one, half does the other, because without meaning to, there's always going to be a lot of pressure on you.
Yeah.
But I didn't think it was a bad thing. I was really in the same boat as every other apprentice. Nobody really knows what they're doing when they start out, and you're just doing your best. And luckily, the boys in the jocks room over in Ireland were terrific and very helpful. So, I wasn't really any different to anyone else having their first few rides. We were just doing our best.
And were you sort of plonked on a horse when you were still in nappies?
Oh yeah. And never really taught to do anything other than race ride. As soon as you were in a saddle, it was short stirrups and stand up and ride properly. So whether that was the right thing or the wrong thing to do, that was from day dot. This is how you ride.
And did you do this day and age of YouTube and stuff? Did you do your own research watching some of your dad's famous rides, or did you ever talk about it to you?
He will talk about it. He wouldn't be the sort of person to bring it up himself. But if you ask him, he'd tell you as much as he can about it, and watching rides like, I think probably biased myself, but watching Royal Academy win the Breeders' Cup is I think the greatest ride I've ever seen.
And the greatest commentary ever.
It's not bad, is it?
That's the greatest commentary ever. We'll talk about. We're coming to talk about you, but of course we had to talk about your dad because it's everybody remembers Leicester, loves Leicester. But you mentioned Ireland. Now you were an apprentice with Tommy Stack, and you worked at Ballydoyle. So why were you in Ireland and not here in Newmarket?
It's interesting. I suppose when I finished school, I went and did my A-levels, and probably whilst I was doing my A-levels, when I got my first interest in Bloodstock, I was doing a lot of work at Tattersalls. I realised I could make more money there than I could going to school, so I thought this would be a great idea. I'll spend as much time at Tats as I can. And once I finished school, I got a job at Coolmore with the Yearlings, doing Yearling prep, which was a great opportunity from Mr. Shanahan. I was very pleased with it. Straight out of school, I thought this is wonderful. After a few months there, between him and I and Aidan as well, we said, look, maybe you should go across and sit on a few over at Ballydoyle. And I mean, geez, to sit on such incredibly well-bred horses, you know, day after day, and ride the same gallops as my father rode such wonderful horses on, it's an opportunity you can't turn down. And that's how I ended up on the riding side of things. But I suppose my first foray into going over to Ireland was because of Coolmore being over there. I tell you what, I read Horse Trader, great book, and as soon as I finished that, it's about Robert Sangster and how it was all started off there, and I thought, I've got to go here, I've got to go see this place.
That's impossible to get that book then. I've tried to get that.
Very difficult.
Very difficult. Just going back, so I'm interested there, so excuse my ignorance, but what would be yearling prep?
So yearling prep's when we take the horses that are 1 year old and we bring them in from the field, say June time, or maybe a little bit later, and give them about 2 months of lunging, time on the walker, and basically day-to-day care to muscle them up and get good condition on them so that we can then take them to the sales in September or October, and they're in tip-top prep, tip-top order, and hopefully make as much money as possible.
Right, okay. So then you came back from Ireland, or did you? Or were you working with Willie Haggas and Charlie Appleby before you went to Ireland?
I did a little bit when I was about sort of 12 years old. I used to ride the hack for Willie, with the family connection there. He's married to my half sister, so they were always good to me. And yeah, look, coming back to Newmarket was fun. And again, riding for William, he's doing so well now. They've got so many horses, and equally Charlie. Not many people know, but Charlie used to work for Leicester when he was a trainer. He was an assistant trainer to him when he trained on Hamilton Road. So it was nice to sort of go full circle and go back and ride a few for him. Again, very well bred and talented horses.
Yeah. Now you travel a lot. Now we'll get into that later. You also worked in Dubai.
That's right. Yeah, Charlie was kind enough to take me over to Dubai for 6 months. He takes. At that time, it was about 30 horses and about 6 people. We would go over there, and there was a private track in the desert. And Saeed would do the same. I mean, it was for a young lad an incredible opportunity to go out to Dubai, and I think Leicester was proud of me for travelling and making the most of being a work rider and sort of spreading my rings. And actually, it wasn't long after I got back that I said to Charlie, I said, look, I need to keep going. So I then ended up going to Australia for Gay Waterhouse only a couple of months later, which again, the job is a hard job, you know, long hours, you've got to love it, but you're afforded this opportunity to travel and you know, not many jobs in the world where you can just sort of hop across the world at a week's notice and have a job off the bat.
It's interesting because a lot of normal kids sort of go off backpacking and end up on Bondi, but the racing people, they nearly all seem to gravitate to Gay Waterhouse. I mean, she must take a lot of young people on their sort of version of a gap year or whatever.
A huge number, and actually even people that don't have horse experience and are on their gap year still end up sort of working in the stables with Gay. So she's great for people like that. It's almost a rite of passage. You go to Australia and you work for Gay for a bit.
And you work for a few other Aussie trainers as well?
I did, yeah. I worked for Archie Alexander because he was a head man. He was running a yard at Ballydoyle when I was there, and he's now got a lot of horses down in Oz. For McAvoy in Adelaide, and for who else? Oh, around a few places. I was quite lucky and actually developed a love of the Aussie sales whilst I was down there through Johnny McKeever. It's such a vibrant market down there, and so I just went once and fell in love with it. It's very easy to. It's on the Gold Coast, and not a bad spot really.
Yeah. Now, you did ride in some races. When we first met, we met at the Derby Awards, and you were telling me about your first ride.
That's right.
So can you not keep it just me and you? Can you tell everybody about your first ride over in Ireland?
Yeah, no, obviously I was, absolutely panicking like anyone is for their first ride. A lot of.
Was it 2013?
I suppose it would have been now. Yeah. It was at Killarney Racecourse. There was plenty of publicity going on around it, but I mean, really, I was no different to any other kid having their first ride, and in sort of true Irish form, all the sort of I was riding for Tommy Stack, and he said, just like anyone else, just get round. I think maybe the punters thought otherwise. They thought maybe they were trying to start me off with a winner, and I think the horse went from about 12-1 at the start of the day into favourite, which none of us could quite believe. And in fact, we didn't even know until I pulled up that we were favourite.
Oh, it didn't pile on the pressure before you got in the stalls, and they didn't say you're going to win this or.
No. And speaking of the stalls, guy, it was a bit funny. They put a blindfold on the horse, and I'd never been through the stalls with a blindfold on before. So my only instructions was when you get put in the stalls, pull the blindfold off. I thought, wow, this is straightforward enough, isn't it? So they put me in the stalls about 6th of 14. As soon as they closed the back door, I just whipped the blindfold off. And everyone was screaming and shouting, going, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I got told to take the blindfold off before we jump out." Anyway, luckily the horse was good as gold. He was a lovely ride. I forget the name. God, I can't remember.
Pivotal
now.
Rock.
That's right, Pivotal Rock. He was a lovely horse.
So your riding career amounted to, was it 5 in the end? So you decided it wasn't really for you?
Just a handful. I was actually towards the end. I was struggling with the weight a bit, and I just thought. Yeah, I was sort of turning up to races and being almost lightheaded with trying to sweat and keep my weight down. I just thought, look, this isn't really a viable future for me. I enjoy the riding and I'll keep on riding, but I'll find a different foray into it. And like I said, I was lucky to find the Bloodstock ride.
Yeah, the coffee and cigars diet for 40 years wasn't going to be for you.
No, admirable though, jeez.
So by the sound of it, you were doing a fair bit of networking all around the world, even if you didn't realise it, with all the stuff you did as a fairly young man.
That's right. Yeah, like you say, without meaning to, I suppose I've probably got a bit of nomad in me in the way that I don't like staying in one place for too long, and so I accidentally had contacts. From South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Dubai, America, all around Europe, and just from going and sitting on horses and talking to people, and actually, like you say, it's come in such use as an agent. There's rarely a horse that you can't find out about by ringing a few people, even other work riders or whatnot. It's an incredible network, and I think the racing world is good like that. There's rarely someone that doesn't want to come and have a chat at the races, at the sales, or whatnot. So it's the racing world is very useful for that.